System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Friday, November 29th. I am Amin TMK alongside Amoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Amoja, hello. Today is National Capitalism Day, also National Blackout Day. Don't buy anything. Today's not the day to do that. Strike Day, Black Friday, all the things. The day after Turkey Day. What say you on today? What are your feelings? And hello.
I mean, I just want to know why they got to make it the race card, man. Why it's got to be the black? Why don't we get a white Friday?
And it's the cheapest day.
It's DEI day, man.
Wow.
No, man. That's bad. Black Friday. Imagine if it was a white Friday. Just imagine.
Wow. Swoke shit's gone too far, man.
Swoke shit's gone too far.
Yeah. We're joking just because, it's the escalation throughout the world. Again, it's just at a level that's hard to rationalize. I feel like, how people talk about the scope of the solar system or the scope of the galaxy, and you can't really wrap your mind around truly like the size and forces behind that. That's how I feel. It's just too astronomical. And that's how I feel about what's happening right now. Like when we talk about is World War III happening or excuse me. I mean, the conflicts are just off the charts. So let's talk a little bit about them. We have a lot to talk about today. Hello to everyone as well. First thing I want to get to today is there was a ceasefire we were talking about for like 5 minutes between Israel and Lebanon. We talked about it, I feel like earlier that morning, and later in the afternoon when we contacted each other again, we're like, oh, well, and they broke it too, and now they're in a war with Syria. So let's talk a little bit about what happened sort of over the last 2 days with the ceasefire and what's happening now. What are your thoughts and what's on the ground? What's the thing?
Anybody who's been following our show regularly should have seen that this ceasefire was coming. We told y'all one of the first things that happened, one of the very first things that happened when Trump won the nomination was he had his Lebanese envoys sent to Lebanon. Like that happened within 24 hours. And he had told Bibi, have this shit wrapped up before I'm the fucking president. Like we literally talked about that maybe 3 or 4 broadcasts ago. So no one, you know what I'm saying? If you're following, but ask yourself why. Why did Biden make sure it happened? One, Biden wanted to be able to have a press thing. Like, oh, look, I brought a ceasefire, right? Because it's just the way his ego works. Right. But also realistically, Orishnik changed the conversation. And we're going to come back to that. It's impossible for us not, especially now that we have more data on what actually happened with that missile strike. But the fact of the matter is, as much of a Zionist as Biden is, Biden does have issues with Netanyahu. He holds him responsible for how he treated the Democrats during this last election, essentially ensuring that Trump would get it. Although, again, we've already told you there was no way that the Democrat had a chance against Donald Trump. The West understands that war is coming, and they want a president, right or wrong, that can make decrees, that can rule by decree, strong decree. Like this isn't the time for the American empire to have the kind of a president that runs by committee. Like I need to check in with BlackRock. I need to check in with JP Morgan. I need to see how the tech industry will react. That's not the time for that, right? That's like a 2012 president. That's not a 2024 president where like war is assumed inevitable, where the great game is moving into the final steps. And again, we've been talking about the great game. You can see now how the United States has used Europe literally as pawns in its great game, moving France here, moving the UK there, keeping Germany in reserve. And this is literally what's happening. The ceasefire is exactly that. Israel, which is a stronger piece in the American empire's chess board, right, is being brought back in reserve to allow them to rearm and get ready to get it really cracking when Trump comes in. But also, because they need to divert some of this to Ukraine. Once again, because the threat is that real. Like they're forcing the Ukrainians. We've shown you, if you follow our Instagram, you've seen videos of Ukrainian men running for their freaking lives, trying to get away from these
their moms and their mothers coming out crying and punching the recruiters and
right. And the Americans are they're going to make Zelensky lower the draft age to 18. You know, I mean, it's literally, who called this? Putin called this. Putin said a year ago, I guess the West is going to make them fight to the last Ukrainian. And that's being demonstrated more and more. It's just like, you know, Lindsey Graham went back there 6 months ago and said do it. And the rumors are the only reason that Zelensky hasn't done it is because he knows it's so unpopular. The war is so unpopular. That will be the end of his little dictatorship. And then we'll either get one of these Klitschko's in there as the new president, or realistically, probably Zelensky. Again, don't be surprised when these things happen. We give y'all the news so that you be informed, so that you can do what you need to do for your tribe and for your own intellect going into these things.
We're reading the tea leaves, as they say, and we're not the only ones that are saying these things. I mean, we don't live in a vacuum. There is a large apparatus of news out there that are saying similar things, even people with vastly different backgrounds.
Right. So what happened
go ahead.
It was it went from being a hot war, which, you know, again, just one of the great ironies of this whole Lebanon situation is the fact that Yoav Gallant, co-conspirator, also got warrants, you know what I'm saying, told Bibi Netanyahu, again, we told you on this broadcast, you will lose. If you go to Lebanon, you will lose, right? And we had the straight Lord of the Rings moment where Denethor sits down with Faramir and he's like, is there a commander who got the strength of will to do his king's commanding, right? And they get they ass sent off in there and the ministerial thing get ate the fuck up, right? So like we're talking about estimates of 60 Merkava tanks blown up in less than 60 days. I'm seeing reports of almost 1,500 Israelis KIA. You know, they didn't meet any of their military objectives. But to Bibi, right, who is not a military man, he's a politics man, he's thinking, there's no way this Lebanon stuff is going to be that hard. I know that we got, you know, for example, we're insinuating we have infiltration with them. We have these pagers that we can use at any time. You know, they were able to kill Hassan Nasrallah, which was quite a shock. And of course, the West always assumes, well, if you kill the lead guy, you know, you chop the head of the snake off and the body withers, not understanding that Hezbollah is not built that way. I mean, they are decentralized resistance.
Yeah.
That's largely self-sufficient. And that's what the Israelis found out. Again, you can go all the way back to our broadcast where we had Sally the Capitalist and Matthew, right? Where we said it will be different for the Israeli war machine when they go to the northern resistance. This was months and months and months ago. You know what I'm saying? So again, the people that watch us should not be surprised at all with this. And what happened? It went from being a hot war to them activating all of their covert resources. So the very day that the ceasefire takes place, and I say ceasefire because Israel has already violated it 1 million times. They're still bombing. They still have soldiers, you know, south of the Litani, you know, all of these things they're keeping Lebanese people from being able to go back to their homes, right? Just out of pure pettiness, by the way, because the northern Israelis don't feel safe, right? But the southern Lebanese absolutely feel safe to move back into their homes. So who won, right? But what did they do? They went and activated all of these intelligence assets in Syria because they're attempting to, once again, disrupt the logistics, right? Because the assumption is if Hezbollah uses this time to rearm, just like Israel is trying to rearm, right? Though most of that capacity is going to have to come internally because, again, though the Americans are moving them resources, they're once again shifting everything back to Ukraine because they have to. They can't run them both. So somebody gets put down for a little bit, somebody gets put up. And it looks like Israel, even though they just got a $392 million weapons package again, that's actually not big money as far as like war stuff goes, right? So everything that can be, you know, meanwhile, you know, Biden is talking about dropping $5 billion worth of Ukrainian debt while all of our student loans are hanging over our heads. Some of us are hanging by those student loan debts. You know what I'm saying? So Israel's doing what they can. They've activated all of their covert resources, and all of a sudden, the Syrian revolution is kicking off again, right? And that's all an attempt just to disrupt the logistics lines between Iran, Syria, and Lebanon. Because while they know that they can't restock the way they need to, and they're needing to make these things internally, which now they can't guarantee because Lebanon has already demonstrated abilities to bypass Israeli air defense, right? If there was a weakness in Hezbollah's approach, it's just that even though they're able to disrupt Israeli air defense, the payloads on those weapons is just not big. It's just not enough. They penetrated their air defense so many times, and actually very little damage was done because these are just not powerful rockets. They're not powerful missiles.
Right now, it seems like these wars are being fought, with missile and missile defense. Mm-hmm. And, while like you were talking about, Israel with the tanks, they're losing big. I mean, there's also something to be said about Israel's just ability to fight wars against other militaries when you're not used to going up against competent teams. Like if you're it's like the team every year in the Sweet 16 or whatever it is. Not like the team every year that's the number one in like the Atlantic 5, which is like six different teams, and one is like Maine State or something. It's like, yeah, when you play against Maine State, you're a killer. But when you go up against, I don't know, North Carolina or Pittsburgh or Virginia, I mean, it's a little different.
Yeah.
And that just seems like what's happening with Israel. When they go up against an actual military, they just take enormous losses. And now it's like, okay, well, we're losing in Lebanon. Let's have a little ceasefire. Oh, wait, psych. Now while we got that with the, what's happening in Lebanon, breaking the ceasefire. Now you're in Syria. So let's talk just a little bit about this point. And I don't know if you've already mentioned it, but the president of Turkey and in his role in this current involvement and engagement with the Syrian military and the Syrian people. Can you speak to a little bit about that and what's going on?
This motherfucker, man. Erdogan, man, he is a slippery little shit, isn't he? He gives all these wonderful speeches about how he stands with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas are heroes and they're fighting against the Israeli juggernaut, all while continuing to allow all of the gas to go through and take a little tax, 10% for the big guy. The Israeli economy would absolutely be shuttered if Erdogan just simply did not allow that to happen. And who called his bluff was the Houthis. Because when those Turkish oil freighters tried to pass through the Suez Canal, they came under fire from the Houthi, to the point whereas, now the Turkish Navy is sending warships to the Red Sea. Go fucking luck. You think you could do something that the American Navy couldn't do? Good fucking luck, right? But what it's really doing is it's exposing Erdogan. And more than he even exposes himself. I mean, the fact that, once again, the Turkish army is helping these moderate militants all of a sudden, you got time to help them militarily, but you never had time to help the Palestinians. And I think the Arab Street sees this. He is, oh God, to give you a very bad Game of Thrones reference, he's House Frey. Erdogan is House fucking Frey. Whichever the way the wind blows, if it's something in it for him, his greedy ass is going to do it. And again, right, these things really expose him as it relates to his standing in BRICS. And I think these things are going to have long-term complications. They're not going to allow him to play both sides forever. I get it. You're in a tricky situation. You're in a little dance with the East and you're in a little dance with the West. But, there's only two sides to a razor blade. You step in the middle and you get cut. And I think Erdogan is very close to finding himself cut. He's received official warnings from Iran, don't fucking get involved. I would hate to, he's been warned by the Russians because, of course, they have military bases in Syria and this affects all of them. You know what I'm saying? And so, again, it's like, bro, you need to do what you normally do. Nothing. Don't fucking get involved in this shit, But
what is he gaining, do you think, for something like this?
Literal power. It's no different than Bibi Netanyahu. If he was to make a strong move against Israel, you would find out just how not NATO he is. NATO is quite happy to keep him in NATO so long as he has, 500,000 strong army, one of the best trained armies in NATO, men. Because that's what NATO needs the most, men. If it's going to be a war against Russia, they need men. And Turkey is the only NATO nation that really has it like that. Not just technology, right? Though their technology is great. Turkey is utilizing 5th generation fighters. They're working on 6th generation fighters. They have everything the West has, right? It's just racism makes people think that they don't. But they have men, right? That's what Ukraine is missing. That's what the UK cannot offer. That's what Germany will not offer. That's what the French cannot offer. That's what the Polish cannot offer. Turkey can offer men, and men is the only thing that can change this thing. So they're in a great negotiating spot. It's just, think about how clever Lula was, how he played it. He only ever does his little betrayals when he absolutely has to. If there's any kind of way to do any sneaky fucking thing, that's what Erdogan does. He's a sneaky little shit.
This is what I remember when the election was happening in Turkey. And, his opposition is even more pro-West. So it goes by, we talk about how the United States elections are often irrelevant, but it's not like it's still like that in other places in the world where you have two candidates that are still close to the West. And it just depends on the amount of involvement and engagement that they are willing to just go along with whatever the Western general ideology is or whatever, hawk moment that they need to have. And it's unfortunate for the Turkish people. And again, it just goes back to the point of, elections and democracy, if not done right, if you don't have ranked choices, if you don't do it right, if you try to rig it a little bit, if you use too much propaganda, you're just going to constantly go back to the same problems that we already having. And I think the Turkish people are a little over it as well. Let's get a little bit just to this, because there's just so much to talk about again. And I appreciate everyone rocking with us. Let's talk about this missile, man. That sounds like one of those Russian fighters.
Woo.
How do you say it, man? It's the Orishnik. Obviously,
it's like the Mufasa. Orishnik.
Yeah. It's how you say it. It doesn't like it's doing some things, and we're understanding it in a little bit different light right now. Just because war is tough. We have the fog of war. There's a lot of things we have to fight against it too. Saying, hey, this happened, and hey, this went down, because sometimes you need a few days to see how the dust settles, but we try to break the news. We try to give you the best news.
A whole new weapon system is brought online.
Yeah,
we don't want to be the ones that give you breaking news. We want to give you news that is solid, news that is vetted. You know what I'm saying? And we told you when it hit, we would need a couple of days to really kind of go over the satellite photos and to really distill. So is that where we at? Let's talk about this.
Let's talk about it, yeah.
Game changer. Okay. So it's not actually an ICBM. The payload is, but it works like one, right? So it's not an ICBM because it's not meant to be intercontinental. All that simply means is, and in many ways, this is actually scarier. This weapon was made specifically to threaten Europe. Specifically. It's not really a weapon that is made to threaten the United States unless somehow they're able to miniaturize it to the point where it can be deployed from one of their nuclear submarines. Because just like America, Russia has a nuclear triad, right? They have a missile nuclear force, they have an air force nuclear force, and they have a naval nuclear force. That's called a triad. Only 4 nations in the world are able to do this. I believe the others are the United States, China, and probably Britain, right? Yeah. So that's something to think. Again, Americans are so used to having such a sweeping technological advantage over people. They fail to understand these things. The Orishnik is a game changer in that it's a missile that works like an ICBM. It still goes up in the upper orbit, but it doesn't have as much fuel for the payload because the target is not meant to hit America. It's meant to hit anywhere in Europe. And so we're talking about under an hour right? An ICBM can take up to an hour to get anywhere to anywhere in the world, but normally less. This weapon takes 30 minutes to get to anywhere, less than 30 minutes for its payload. It fires into upper orbit and then upper atmosphere, right? Space. And then from there, it deploys its warheads, right? So there's a launching body and then it replaces. So it's everything that we said about the MIRV is true. What we didn't understand was the impact, right? And it's been described as a near nuclear, non-nuclear weapon. Right. So it fires down weapons, the warhead, right, which is not an explosive or an incendiary warhead, which is like what we're used to seeing. Bomb goes off, boom.
Explosion.
Kinjal goes off, boom. Zircon goes off, boom. You can see that. Nah, this is meant to be a kinetic weapon, and it uses the gravity of Earth for the acceleration, as long with the propellant that is released. So it's firing down at hypersonic speed. And
it's like a little meteor or something.
Yes, it's like aiming little meteors. Does that frighten you? Because it fucking should. It fucking should. They're like firing little meteors down into the earth.
I want to fight that country. I think we should get in a war with that country.
Without like a writ from Congress by a president that's on his way out. I think we should definitely keep poking that bear, as it were, right? And so the impact, right, is released with the force of nuclear weapons without the fallout of nuclear weapons. And when it makes contact with its target, it is coming down in temperatures in excess of 4,000 degrees centigrade. Whatever it hits, it atomizes. And all that's left is dust.
In the wind.
That's the original, boys and girls. And they're working on the Sarmac, which is the great granddaddy version of that one. The Americans translated Satan.
Right. I mean, so wait, did you say it was 4,000 degrees Celsius?
Yes.
Oh my God. You know how much that is? So for our American listeners, because we ain't doing no metric. I don't do that. We do our own things. That's 7,000 degrees, y'all. Fahrenheit. So that doesn't make any sense to me. And again, you're going to go to war with this country. Oh, and this is the type of thing that people say. It was like, oh, they're running out of weapons. Like, what do you mean? They just used one.
Like they're running out of their regular shit, maybe, right? But you don't even know what this is a total, complete failure of American intelligence.
They're so much better. They're so much better than Ukraine that they didn't need to bring out the big boys.
Look, Ukraine is for NATO. And let's just be honest about what this is.
Because everyone's seen the playbook. You want to destabilize Russia, okay? So you're going to use Ukraine to do it. Remember, you were mentioning this to me. We have a lot of history conversations behind the scenes, y'all, but we were, talking about World War I, World War II. What was America doing? When did they get into the war? Did they jump right into the war? No. They took some time because they wanted to make sure that everyone else was spent. So they're thinking, okay, well, we're spending Ukraine, we're spending Russia, we're spending Germany, we want to spend France, we want to spend the UK. Already hop in, they might have an advantage. So guess who is a big history buff? Well, that would be a man by the name of Vladimir Putin.
Madman.
Yeah, he's not only a historian and understands that he's the president of Russia. He is, and the fact of the matter is he won an election overwhelmingly 3 weeks. Maybe it was rigged. Okay. But
at least he had one. And again, I haven't seen.
Where's the Russian people? The Russian people.
A lot of data about the Russian election.
Can I ask a question? Do the Russian people have a history of, I don't know, revolutionary actions? Do they have a history of protesting and a history of, they do. But you didn't have a whole lot going on, did you? No. And that's something that you can, what's not going on right now? Protests in Venezuela. They did happen, the first few days. Then there was lots of protests out there.
They're all gone.
And where are they now?
Paychecks dried up.
Exactly.
But you can go to Ukraine right now, and once again you see grandmothers fist fighting recruiters in the streets because they're carrying away their sons and their grandsons.
And they look to Zelensky.
Sometimes their daughters.
Yeah, they look to Zelensky, and they looked to to the West.
Who has not had an election, by the way, who is completely illegitimate
and has been almost for a year now.
Right.
So you have all this happening. Not to mention, what about BB? What about OBB? I mean, come on.
BB straight up said, I don't see the ceasefire is not an end of the war. He said straight up, 100% out of his own mouth, if I find a tactical or strategic advantage during this time, I will utilize it.
But my question is, and my point is where is his elections? He's a
parliamentarian, right? BB's tricky because
I get that. I'm just saying it's unfair. It's unfair that so many people, again, Israel at this point in their timeline is a very, very right-wing, militant populace.
He legit might win if they actually had. I don't know. I mean, Israeli politics is complicated.
It's complicated, and it's complicated for a reason. Remember, I was telling you about Turkey. Not telling you about Turkey. I was mentioning Turkey. Their democracy doesn't work either. Israel's democracy don't work either. And
he is a reflection of the Israeli population. Like, he's not.
Then let him win an election. Sure. If he won an election, then I think the things that he's carrying out with the war in Lebanon, the war in, with Hezbollah, the war in Syria, obviously the G side currently with the Palestinians always left holding the bag right here.
Right.
Constantly every day, 50 more Palestinians killed, 100 Palestinians killed. And let's not forget, Israel and America and much of Europe are the ones that are creating the conditions for this war to continue, and the global South isn't. Look, I always get on in this. I'm just on a rant right now. I'm just like, because it's just frustrating, right?
Yeah.
We are frustrated. It's like difficult because, like you said, Joe Biden is like an old, decrepit wizard in a dungeon.
A bitter man.
He reminds me of the Mad King in Game of Thrones.
Grudges against everybody. Grudges against Trump.
And he sees enemies all around him. Yep. He's like you said, bitter.
Grudges against Putin. Grudges against Obama. Let's be honest. Grudges against Kamala. There's no way they're close now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he'd probably
rather hang out with Trump than Kamala. Yeah. Not that they're hanging out.
Lloyd Austin. Why you always telling me I can't do this? I'm the president.
Let's not forget
whatever.
Let's not forget Anthony Blinken. When he's giving a speech and Anthony hit him with
grudges the whole Lincoln. Yeah.
Come on. Like, do you think they're all on the same page?
He's mad at the world.
The Democratic Party's mad at everyone.
For is Jill Biden and his sons.
Yeah. No, that's a fact. Let's just end it here. And we can talk more.
We got a special guest for y'all Monday.
Yes.
Cedillo will be back, and we're going to be talking some good shit.
I think we're going to be talking good stuff, and I always want to ask him about Claudia Sheinbaum, who I just love. I think she's just one of the best, current presidents in the world.
Women can win if they stand on something, and lead by this is how it's going to be.
I voted for a woman. It wasn't Kamala, but I did vote for a woman. What about you? Yeah, so Kamala. I don't have no problem with that. I wish I
could have voted for Claudia Sheinbaum. I'm so impressed with the work that she has done so far.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a little, what are they, like a sneak peek or whatever? I don't know. Let's just give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're everywhere you find podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, and we're on Spotify and all kind of stuff. When I go through the stats of the podcast, I see all kind of stuff that I've never heard of. So you know what? Get us wherever you find podcasts because our RSS feed is out there. All you got to do is search us, Inner City Left. We also have a Patreon. You know what's up. Follow us or support us, patreon.com/innercityleft. We have free subscriptions too, if you just want to say hello. And we also have these cool t-shirts. We still got these. I actually need to order some more, but whatever it is, we were going to get those involved. We got all kind of new things coming out. Like, subscribe, comment if you can. And those are my thoughts. Amoja, what do you got for us? Take us some. Oh, did you want to mention? I'm sorry, I got to bring this up. There's like our little clown corner, the Kamala little speech or whatever. Did you just want to comment on that real quick? Not real.
It was actually unburdened by what has been the spirits of that bottle, man. Ooh, boy.
You cannot fool people If you, for those who don't
She
know,
is
please.
barred up, bro. I mean, damn, bro.
Straight
I hope
future.
she ain't operating no heavy machinery, man. Woo, God bless, man.
If
God
you want to know
bless.
more, please go to our Instagram at Inner City Left. You can see all this. Look, we post serious stuff for the most part, right? We post serious stuff on Inner City Left,
Man,
but like
when they out there
sometimes
wilding, man. Oh boy.
we gotta mention it. Yeah. So Kamala Harris was, out there. She was like, "Don't forget you have power. Don't forget that just because you didn't, you still like this is why you lost, and you're coming right now. You don't have anything to lose, right? You got 2 months left. You're on the way out. You're probably going to be gone for at least 2 or 3 years.
Presidency. So as a vice president, you have enormous power. That's what the Supreme Court said. So it seemed like, Biden getting all the shit done he wanted to do. Why don't you do some of this on your
What
way
is
out?
even her project? Does she have one project?
Man,
I just can't imagine.
Rumors that the Democrats that are helping her pay off her campaign debts are doing so under the promise that she will not run again in 2028.
They're paying her to leave. Yeah, they're paying her to leave. And that's just where the Democrats are. Man, it's just embarrassing that these are our politicians. And we have to argue with people.
Yourself.
Yeah. And now we're dealing with Trump and J.D. Vance that are going to take us through World War III. Oh, my God.
Man, is it the final season? Is it the American season finale, man? Ooh, it is a nail biter, man.
Here's the thing: it might not be the season finale, but I don't think the ratings are going to continue to be this high. I think this is the biggest part. I think people are going to tune into Global South, season 4, and get out of this.
Spin-off.
Yeah. So I want to give a shout out to y'all. Much love to our patrons. Let's give them a shout out because they're the real heroes in the streets out here doing the good work, keeping us right. Let's give a shout out to Nikki Enfield, Riggedy Pellegrino, Nat the Rat, Lucy Newman, Samantha Guerrero, Dumpy, Tom LeBeau, Turn Leftist, Dubsy22, Jay Gallard 94, No Ground RK, Paula Ponderosa, Lissa Piercy, Lauren Bullock, Suzette Tav, Dennis Amadeus. Appreciate you, players and pimps.
Yo, and again, one love to all of the original Indigenous First Nation people that are still alive and holding down traditions in this country. We owe y'all a debt that can never, ever, ever be acknowledged, man. But all we can do is own that. You know what I'm saying? Blessings on all of y'all that's still here, still holding it down, especially on the day after, one of the most violent days as it relates to so many cultures in America. You know what I'm saying? So love to y'all, man. They'll never say it, but we always gonna say it.
Yeah, just well said. And man, again, just happy to have another week without a nuclear explosion for us to keep talking about this. And, just hold close to your people, man, because we don't know how much longer we got going on here.
Building.
Not trying to be an alarmist. We just trying to keep it a million because, we love people too. And we want to see especially leftists and people who are just at least, involved in the movement, want to see a better world. We want to see those people grow and we want to see those people thrive. Okay. For Emoji Little Tanky Sumler, I'm Amin TMK. This is Inner City Left. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.